Okay, it is now finally almost 5 o'clock on the 28th. Looks like we've just had a cool weather, get a little bit of heat, and then we'll be getting back to a little bit more rain, but I don't think it's cause for alarm. Where are we? We're deep in the between the 5th and 6th cover, 6th to 8th cover. You might start to see more apple blotch and some of the other leaf spots, but now is the critical time to wrap up the management on that, and you should be able to, if you did a good bit of single-site fungicide applications, have these things under control even with the rainy season that we're having. And if you're not using Captan Mancozeb, just make sure to put those various biopesticides in here, and if you can, still use the single-site fungicides. If you can't use single-site fungicides, just double up maybe almost every 5 days with the biologicals. And that's kind of where we are right now. Sort of the final time I would tell you to sort of push for foliar and early pre-harvest fruit diseases. In this particular case, applications after 3 to 5th cover of almost no longer, apple blotch has done what it's going to do for the most part. Yes, it can pick up a little bit towards the fall, but that's only because it wasn't managed early on. If we have a big 5 days of rain, I think we're okay. Some rain has happened, but as long as you maintain your coverage with your protectants, that's kind of where I'd be going. I would kind of, if you have a single site, you're going to use one more before harvest, then go ahead and put it out now. SDHI, QI, DMI types are all fine. They should prevent it from defoliating. It's our last apple blotch spray this week as well. If it looks pretty good, low levels of rain, you don't have a lot of rain, then just stick with the Captan and phosphorus acid. Drop your Captan to 2.5. That phos acid's kind of a little bit oily. Those products are if you ever touch it, so be careful. Don't use it in slow drying weather, but I don't think we're going to have slow drying weather. It's going to be kind of hot. A lot of the scab and other things are getting burnt out, and if you're not going for the Captan, use a liquid biopesticide. Some examples are, Eco Swing, Double Nickel, LC, Stargus. They work pretty well. Or you can use, if you, Oso is another really fantastic summer disease product, Polyoxin D, or even Howler. Very effective, but the liquid products seem to be a little easier to do. And as we're moving into the 6th or 8th cover, pretty much the same thing I've just mentioned. In this case, you'll back off a little bit and save 1 or 2 more single-site applications for harvest. And this is the kind of nonsense we're going to be managing. Keeping an eye out for stuff like glomerella leaf spot, which is more delineated polygon-like shaped lesions on leaves, while the apple blotch will look more like a spreading lesion from ink on a very absorbent piece of paper like rice paper or watercolor paper. You can kind of see it bleeding out across the veins. This has very distinct fruiting bodies and sort of diffuse necrotic areas, while this glomerulus is sort of very defined concentric rings within its polygon-like shape. And for the most part, you'll have these things wrapped up with the materials I just mentioned, the single-site fungicides and some decent biologicals, and then you should be on your path to avoiding complete defoliation this fall. It's been pretty wet. In this case, if you're going organic operation, you're going to rely on only the biologicals or the biopesticides. Just go twice. And these types of things will happen. You'll start to know if you failed when it starts to move into August and the trees lose all of their foliage, but you'll start to see these things start to showing up. The splotchy lesions for the apple blotch, formerly known as Marsanina, and sort of irregular, diffuse. It looks like blackness is bleeding through the leaf in places with sort of a dead center and clearly defined, looks like pepper grinder, like pepper flakes inside the lesion itself. You can get some on fruit, but this is going to happen only at harvest. I wouldn't worry about that. The other thing you'll start to see now are the frog eye leaf spots, really round, small, circular spots with concentric rings. They won't look like a polygon like the apple blotch. But if you're starting to see that these things are already well advanced, it's probably a little bit too late to remediate and kind of clean them up now. You can kind of spray them out, but for the most part, I wouldn't panic and do a lot of spraying. This is caused by Botrytis. I've seen a good bit of it this season, out particularly in young plantings, and it'll survive and sporulate on cankers and thinning mummies. I've seen mummies near leaves in trees like this just sort of must have been hit by rain and just sort of spattered the infections all over the leaves. And they can lead to the foliar infections will lead to a greater incidence of the black and white rot type fruit rots as well, particularly in wet summers. We're kind of having a wet summer, a lot of hot weather now, finally, but it is particularly wet, and I don't think this pathogen is going to get burned out like scab with 90 and 87 degree days. I don't think it really cares. It's fairly recalcitrant as it lives in there and just will sprinkle stuff on the fruit. Black rot is kind of oily in the skin of the fruit. Epidermis will remain intact. If it's a white rot, it kind of really soft rot, and the whole thing will collapse under your finger if you have it. And then we've talked a bit about that. And then you can see both. You can see a little bit of what seems to be the apple blotch, that sort of diffuse, right next to some pretty intense-looking frog eye leaf spot, which can kind of look a little bit like the chemical injury as well. Look for the concentric rings around deep in the lesions on the leaf, and they may not see it until the frog eyes get big enough. And if you haven't really, and if the frog eyes are sort of concentrated in hot spots or deeper in the canopy, less likely to be injury. The injury would sort of be more banded without any sort of clustering whatsoever in regard to leaf shape or humidity. It's possible that you might see glomerular leaf spot in the Hudson Valley area. Another really nasty pathogen that can defoliate trees very rapidly without single-site fungicides, but they're going to start as small purple spots, and they're going to kind of coalesce. They're not going to have that same dark, inky blotch look to the apple blotch. It's going to be more irregular or almost polygon-like shape, as they don't want to cross the veins too much, and they have those nice concentric rings that are sort of expanding as if it was some kind of wood rings on a tree stump, if you will. It can get quite spectacular and can cause the leaves to go into early senescence. The chlorophyll will die. They'll look yellow and it'll kind of be pretty intense. But other than that, I'm going to move away from that a bit. And another nice example of glomerular leaf spot, looking a real extreme one. And you could see fire blight, so we're going to quickly review the pruning again. We have cool days. Now's your chance. Maybe not today when it's 87, but maybe tomorrow when it drops down just a bit again is one of your cool days, but it could rain. So look for the coolest day you got, cut into healthy tissue, last year's tissue, third year's tissue is the best, or just leave a short 5-inch stub right off the leader. Just if you have a shoot blight right at the tip, just like, yep, you know what, I'm going all the way back to 9th year tissue, or hopefully not 9th, or 3rd or 5th year tissue, and just cut that thing back and leave that little short 5-inch stub in case there's some trouble. It might lock it off the leader itself. We find that seems to be the best. What else we know? If young trees, if you get fire blight and the leader, it's just sort of a lost game. You can never really manage it as long as they're actively growing. It's just not salvageable. If the trees have slowed down a bit or you manage to stop them, you can prune it. I have some trees that have a good bit of fire blight in them that are young, high density plantings, and got a little bit of fire blight, and I'm not going to remove it because I'm afraid it's going to stimulate it. And they're starting to look a little bit dried out, and the trees look a little bit slow, and they're not growing as fast. And so I want to keep them sort of dried up and slow, and I've just been managing them because the bacteria can become systemic in about 3 to 5 days. So whether or not you're post-bloom or summer, what you've got, or even if you're hedging right now, if you don't have any shoot blight, or if you have dry shoot blight, just apply Pro-Hex, 6 to 12 ounces per 100 gallons, plus a low MCE copper, and leave it. If it's oozing, you can go the rescue one where you apply the Pro-Hex plus the liquid copper, wait 5 days, prune it, then do it again until the trees stop growing or you hit terminal bud set. Let's just say you're hedging and you don't have any fire blight at all, but you did hedge the block, or you're doing summer pruning. Even a low MCE copper liquid or a liquid biopesticide after pruning or hedging can save the day. And with that, talking about fire blight, there are other summer disease cankers out there that you might see as well. Tree cankers are very slow growing, wood decay fungi, and they'll affect compromised area. Cold, Roundup, salt injury, or even fire blight. Some of the bigger ones you'll see are the Bodgerspharia, which also causes the frog eye. Some things like Schizophilum can be in there, and various Nectaria species. These things are weak sauce compared to fire blight. We're talking slow as in killing over a couple of years. And they really like to go for, you might see some sort of slowly expanding sunken cankers, typically around crotch angles or other sites of injured tissues. Anything where the things are coming together. And here's another injured tissue from summer pruning, and you can kind of see that it's sort of spreading down from the pruning wound itself. How else can you deal with it? They're just really slow growing wood decay fungi. You might kill the leader on the tree, but you don't have to worry so much about these aggressively wiping out your tree like fire blight. But you could end up pruning some of this out and end up leading to a shoot blight infection. So always practice the pruning procedures for fire blight. Cool days, and sort of spray the trees after if you can. So what you might see if it's a Nectria botryosphaera, they'll be dark brown and wilted, and they might look exactly like fire blight. And you're like, oh no. What ends up happening is follow these shoots back to the very beginning of the branch. And if you see a canker at the beginning of the branch, like, oh, it's not shoot blight. You'll notice that these are dry and kind of pale. Fire blight has necrosis down the midrib. It will be black right down there along the leaf lesions. And if you don't see that, and you follow it back and you see, oh, looks like there's a canker or some pruning wounds down there, it's Nectria. And it won't turn as dark as fire blight. If it's a Nectria cinnabarina, then it'll make these cinnamon-shaped, pink salmon, or even black stromata with spores. Black ones are sometimes with botryosphaera. And then in the summer or fall, these things will begin to sporulate again. As soon as you see them, they're covered with kind of spores, and then they can go after other pruning scars and other summer pruning wounds as well. So they really show up basically if trees have mild winter injury, shoot injury, even too much herbicide damage on the trunk, hailstorms, stem borers, or even deer browsing. You can see this type of stuff probably happened around that split or other summer pruning. It's going to be a slow kill. It's not something that's going to take your apples, or you might even be able to get 3 or 4 good years out of it before anything happens. They sort of survive quiescently in dead wood and mummies and other stuff, and even on little old pieces of tissue on nursery stock, infected spurs, or prunings on an orchard floor. Even if you stopped a fire blight, shoot blight from spreading through the tree, that dried dead tissue could be a home for these types of things. How do you beat them? They're really difficult because the fungi are deep in wood tissue. Sometimes you might find a more aggressive one that hasn't really shown up in New York, but if you happen to have the Neonectra gallengiana, it's a European canker. It's very dangerous. It has been reported in eastern apples. This one will kill a little more quickly. So if you see one of these things making your trees go down very quickly, you can reach out and we can take a look. But a lot of the research that we look to for management of this is what are they doing for the Neonectria pathogen. And then we can apply it to our Nectria cinnabarina and our botryosphaera, pretty weak sauce types of pathogens by comparison to these. This picture here was taken in Brazil, where they are struggling to manage it as well, and it's quite challenging. And so what do? Just sort of prune the dead and disease shoots out, cool day, try to give yourself 24 hours of dry weather afterwards. And, or 24 hours after you've had a rain, cool weather, and then 2 more days of dry weather. If you can't do it, that's fine. Watch for the infection on the leader. Just remove all the junk. You can train a new leader here pretty easy. If it's gotten the trunk of a small tree, you could probably remove it and plant it, or you could just try to live with it. It's not going to spread as wildfire as fire blight. This is kind of what you would see as the initium of that canker here. But the most part, this is all dead wood, and it could just be more fruiting bodies, so why not remove it? You don't need to replant so aggressively as you would with fire blight. Take the orchards and from the cuttings on the floor. They will still sporulate on dead woods. You kind of need to move them off site. Fire blight dries up, can't really do anything without living tissue. These types of things, Nectria and botryosphaera, can cause trouble. You can apply copper and copper fungicide, sort of I like the low liquid MCE ones, 20-80% leaf drop, and after pruning, watch out for the fruit finish. You'll probably be able to manage these weak pathogens with even a biopesticide, such as the ones we recommended for fire blight, or after you do hedging. Just any of the bacillus products like Starix Double Nickel, Eco Swing, any of these types of things will be fine to put to your pruning rings afterwards. Some of the cosine badges are labeled for Nectria. They probably mean for you to use it on Neonectria, but they changed the name, and Nectria is the one we got. I really sort of lean towards the liquid biologicals for these. I think they're fine, and they're going to be widely labeled, and you might be spraying them for your other summer diseases, so that's great. It's also recommended that your summer cover sprays with benemetyl T-methyl can also be kind of effective. While these fungicides aren't really good for many of the other pathogens that we have in apples, they were so rarely used for those the sort of wood decay pathogens, that they can do a good bit, even though there is resistance in apple scab. Don't rely on these two to manage apple scab and powdery mildew necessarily. All right, that's it for this week. Talk to you next week.